Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Pakistan voter ID cards confirm Pahalgam terrorists. Pakistan links forensic evidence also establishes association of the three terrorists with Lashkar-e-Taiba. Philippines President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in New Delhi for a 5-day state visit to hold bilateral discussions with Prime Minister Modi on Tuesday. Defence officials from Thailand and Cambodia begin preliminary talks in Malaysia over border tensions. And India clinch a nail-biter victory in the final test at the Oval, winning against England by 6 runs, level the Anderson Tendulkar series 2-2. Mohammad Siraj bags man of the match. Military drones completely designed and made in India were pivotal in India's success in Operation Sindoor. Our correspondent Nandita Dagar travelled to the Dras sector bordering the line of control with Pakistan and filed this special report on the UAVs which are deployed on India's borders.
This is a mini remotely piloted aircraft built by Asteria Industries, completely made in India, indigenous, a symbol of self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is a UAV which is used primarily for surveillance, and it runs on 2 modes, the turbo mode as well as the cruise mode. This is a huge force multiplier for the artillery units because it can go into the enemy territory and there it can identify the locations which have to be targeted by our artillery guns. The SW remotely piloted aircraft manufactured by Idea Forge Industries, which is completely made in India, indigenous, is also like the other mini remotely piloted vehicle, the AT-15. This also aids artillery units in detecting the targets and locations. It's armed with gimbals or electro-optic and infrared pods beneath its fuselage. This quadcopter, the Q6, is armed with this high-resolution camera, which is an electro-optical and infrared camera, which means that it can see objects at night time also in the dark. Quadcopter, it has 4 rotors. Again, it is aiding the artillery. Trinetra is another quadcopter. You can see that this works with a console and it is remotely piloted by the army troops using this console. Extremely state-of-the-art with a high-resolution camera and turbo motors which run its 4 propellers. We all know what first-person view drones did in Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb. Now, this is an example of Indian Army's own initiative, own innovation. Our troops in the Indian Army, every battalion, the soldiers have made this first-person view drone. I'd show you this joystick with which it can be steered. Of course, it's not flying right now, and this is for the navigation and steering of this first-person view drone. An example of Indian ingenuity, Indian Army's ingenuity. This is the small payload. The payload it carries is an explosive, could be dynamite, could be TNT, could be RDX, or any other explosive that the Army chooses. Apart from this joystick which controls this FPV drone, we also have this headgear. The soldier can wear it, and when he puts it on his eyes, he can see exactly what the FPV drone is seeing. This FPV is a kamikaze drone, which means it's a suicide drone. Once it is launched, it will go into the enemy territory, bomb the target, and of course be destroyed there. With camera person Manmohan in the Dras sector, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Sir Gangaram Hospital and paid homage to former Jharkhand Chief Minister Shibu Soren as he passed away this morning. The Prime Minister met Shibu Soren's family and expressed condolences to the family members and admirers on the passing away of the leader. Former Jharkhand Chief Minister and co-founder of the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, Shibu Soren, died at the age of 81 at a Delhi hospital where he had been undergoing treatment for a prolonged illness. Philippines President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. arrived in New Delhi on a 5-day state visit to India. President Marcos was received by Minister of State for External Affairs, Pabitra Margarita, and accorded a warm welcome. This is the first visit of President Marcos to India since assumption of office of the President of the Philippines. During the visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Marcos are scheduled to hold bilateral discussions on Tuesday. President Marcos will also meet President Draupadi Murmu. India and the Philippines are celebrating 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties, and the visit is aimed at further strengthening of India-Philippines relations. Staying in Asia, Thailand and Cambodia defense officials begin their preliminary talks on Monday in Malaysia ahead of a key ministerial-level meeting on Thursday. The talks, which came after 5 days of border clashes between Cambodia and Thailand, are taking place on ceasefire. The ministers of defense of both countries are due to hold a meeting of the General Border Committee on Thursday to discuss how to maintain the ceasefire. The Thursday meeting will be observed by representatives from the United States, China and Malaysia. While Thailand says both sides are maintaining their position without any significant movements, Cambodia also demanded that Thailand releases 18 of its captured soldiers as soon as possible. Now, the United Nations Security Council will hold a special session on Tuesday morning to discuss the 50 hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. It was following a request by Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, who will attend the meeting in New York. Referring to a video recently released by Hamas showing one of the hostages still being held in Gaza, Sa'ar called on the international community to put the focus on the dire hostage situation.
This past weekend, Hamas and Islamic Jihad cruelly released horrifying videos of our hostages, Eviatar David and Rom Broslavsky. The world witnessed their terrible condition, starved, tortured. Eviatar was forced to dig his own grave. The world saw the thick arm of the well-fed terrorist next to the starved and tortured Eviatar. The international community must make it not worthwhile for the terrorists. The world must put an end to the phenomenon of kidnapping civilians. It must be front and center on the world stage.
Iran's top security body has approved the creation of a new defense council more than a month after a ceasefire ended a 12-day war with Israel. The new body, which will be chaired by the president and includes top military commanders among other senior officials and ministers, will be tasked with reviewing defense strategies and enhancing the capabilities of Iran's armed forces. On Friday, local media said the decision comes as part of broader structural changes to Iran's security apparatus. The move comes in the wake of a conflict with Israel that, according to official figures, left more than 1,000 people dead in Iran and 29 in Israel. Now, amid escalating tensions between Washington and Moscow, U.S. President Donald Trump said that the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is expected to visit Russia this week. After a visit to Israel and Gaza Strip, Witkoff is to travel to Russia potentially on Wednesday or Thursday.
Well, there'll be sanctions, but they seem to be pretty good at avoiding sanctions. You know, they're wily characters, and they're pretty good at avoiding sanctions. So we'll see what happens. But Steve is focused right now on the border in terms of We're talking about with Gaza, getting people fed. And he may be going, I think next week, Wednesday or Thursday, may be going to Russia. They would like to see him. They've asked that he meet, so we'll see what happens.
Donald Trump also hinted of imposing sanctions on Russia if it doesn't agree to ceasefire. The US leader, who returned to power on a pledge to swiftly end the conflict, has in recent weeks rolled back his earlier conciliatory approach towards Moscow and signaled openness to arming Ukraine. The Kremlin on Monday said that Russian President Vladimir Putin may meet the US envoy Steve Witkoff this week and also praised the US mediation efforts aimed to settle the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, in response to US President Donald Trump's statement, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov on Monday said that everyone should be careful about nuclear rhetoric. He added that it was clear that US submarines were already on combat duty and Moscow had no desire to get into a polemic with Trump on the issue. His comments come after Trump's order of 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions.
In this case, it's obvious that the American submarines are already on combat duty. That's standard procedure. But generally, we'd prefer not to engage in such debates or comment on this matter. We are extremely cautious with any statements regarding nuclear issues. As you know, Russia maintains a responsible position. Naturally, we think that everyone should be very careful with the nuclear rhetoric.
You're watching Need India Live, still to come on this show. Plastic pollution costs the world at least $1.5 trillion annually. Negotiators to open talks in Geneva on Tuesday on ways to limit plastic pollution. And Taiwan's semiconductor sector is turning to youth camps to address a growing talent gap.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching Did India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja. Plastic pollution is a grave, growing and under-recognized danger to health that is costing the world at least $1.5 trillion annually. This figure comes from a new review of existing evidence by leading health researchers and doctors in the Lancet Medical Journal. Comparing plastic to air pollution and leading the Lancet report said its impact on health could be mitigated by laws and policies. The report, published one day ahead of the fresh talks in Geneva, Switzerland, urges delegates from 180 nations to finally agree to the world's first treaty on plastic pollution. So negotiators will open talks on Tuesday in Geneva, Switzerland, on how to limit plastic pollution. Delegates from 180 nations are expected to take part after failing to reach a deal last year. The talks are years in the making, but there are still many hurdles to clear before the deal is closed. And for more, we turn to Deutsche Welle's Cassandra Sant in Berlin. Cassandra, thank you for being with us. So what are the stakes here?
Well, thanks for having me. And I should say that the stakes are incredibly high for all sides. And let's not forget that the global plastics industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and that global plastic consumption is set to triple by 2060, at least according to OECD projections on the current situation. So the UN is even projecting that in the next 15 years, the amount of plastic waste in soils and waterways is expected to surge by 50%. Meanwhile, less than 10% of plastic is actually recycled. So take that in combination, this increasing plastic production and more plastic waste. And now keep in mind as well that plastics, when they break down, think of like a plastic bottle on a roadway that gets repeatedly stepped on or run over, that then these teeny tiny bits of plastics are breaking off and finding their way into literally every part of the human body, from being absorbed by the skin to found inside the brain to even breast milk.
Indeed, it's alarming, Cassandra. So what are the areas of agreement and disagreement at the talks in Geneva?
Well, the 10 days of talks are set to open tomorrow, but it's unclear if that is enough time to iron out the 300 points that still need to be resolved. The biggest sticking point is whether to restrict production of new plastic. Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia have opposed those limits, and another sticking point is whether to create a list of dangerous chemicals. Here we would be talking about these so-called forever chemicals that take an extremely long time to break down. Negotiators, at least on the side of limiting plastic, are keen to avoid another round of talks after this one, but it's unclear if an all-encompassing deal will be reached this time in Geneva.
Cassandra Sant reporting from DW Berlin. Moving on now, Taiwan's semiconductor sector is turning to youth camps to address a growing talent gap. At a Hypnosis-led camp, 80 students, including international participants, explored chip making firsthand. Youth camps are now held in English to attract global talent. Taiwan's falling birth rate is shrinking the talent pipeline even further. And on to the news of the day. Mohammad Siraj picked up 5 wickets to help India to a famous 6-run win at the Oval on Monday. In addition to Siraj, Prasidh Krishna chipped in with 4 wickets. With the result, India levelling the Tendulkar-Anderson series 2-2. Chasing 374 runs, England were in a bit of a pickle at 106 for 3. However, Harry Brook and Joe Root launched their strong counter-attack to push India on the back foot. However, late last evening, as the conditions turned conducive to bowling, India managed to pick 3 wickets. And this morning at the Oval, in a nerve-wracking passage, India held their nerve. India took the last 4 wickets in under an hour to bowl England out for 367 runs. Siraj was India's hero, dismissing Jamie Smith and Jamie Overton before bowling Gus Atkinson to complete a 5-wicket haul. After Prasidh Krishna had bowled Josh Tongue for naught, Chris Vokes walked out to bat wearing a sling to protect his dislocated shoulder with 17 runs still needed. Atkinson hit Siraj for 6 to give England brief hope and cleverly protected Vokes from the strike, but Siraj produced another brilliant Yorker to earn India their narrowest ever test win. So, DD India's Narayan Singh joins us for more perspective here. Narayan, Team India sealing a win for the ages as Mohammad Siraj bags a brilliant fifer.
Definitely, as it's a brilliant win. We can say that once in a decade, the way India played today. Yesterday it was looking like that it will be one-way traffic in favor of England when Harry Brook and Joe Root were playing, and they stitched a 195-run partnership for the 4th wicket, and it was looking like that everything will go in India's favor. But in the last session towards the end, on day 4, we saw Prasidh Krishna taking 2 crucial wickets in 9 balls. Just that thing changed the momentum in India's favor. And after that, a rain came and the play went to day 5. That nobody was expecting that the play will go to day 5, but that happened. And our bowlers on day 4 were looking tired. If you take a look at the speed of the Prasidh Krishna, it was around 120, 125. But after a gap of 1 day, they got rejuvenated. now they were fresh legs. So that was reflected today, and the way they started and the way Mohammad Siraj and Prasidh Krishna bowled their heart out. I can say that it was one of the fantastic performance by our bowlers, despite of the fact that there was continuous injury to the Indian bowlers throughout the series. Bumrah played only 3 test matches. It was already announced before the start of the series. But the way, in the absence of Bumrah, the way Siraj performed, it was exceptional. In both the test matches, Bumrah was not there. First in adjustment when India won that test match, and here at the Oval too, in the absence of Bumrah winning 2 test matches in English condition, I think it is one of the best moments for the Indian cricket, the way they bounce back in the series to level it.
Yes, of course, this series draw, looks like more of a win for all of us here in India. Looking at this entire series gone by, Indian batting has crushed records. In fact, India across the 5 matches of the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy, they have scored the 2nd most runs recorded by a team in Test series. So, if we look back, what are the learnings here, both positive and negative for the Indian team?
Very great question by you, Tanvi, because when we win the matches, when we dominate, when in the time of glory we forgot our weakness, and it's all about the great teams always just ponder on their weakness, even their wins. Exactly that has happened. I think that the way you asked, what are the key moments where India lost? If you take a look, in my opinion, the scoreline would have been 3-0, at least 3-0 in favor of India, but they lost the momentum, they lost the moments, they were dominating the 4 sessions, 5 sessions, but in the crucial moments the Indian team faltered. If you take a look at the first match where 5 centuries came from the Indian batters, but we lost that match, and first time it happened that a team scoring 5 centuries in a single match ending on a losing side. So I think here what really happened with the Indian team, the frequent chopping and changing of the team. If you take a look at the first match where Shardul Thakur was there and Jasprit Bumrah was there, but in the very next match Bumrah was rested and Shardul Thakur dropped.
Yes.
But after that we brought few more players, and it was seen throughout the series. I think it should be
more consistent,
overlooked. It should be omitted.
Yes, so more consistent bowling lineup is the combination that we have to still figure out. That's the learning for Gautam Gambhir and his team. Thank you very much, Narayan Singh, for your perspective on the series. For now, we are treating this draw as a win. Thank you very much for being with us. So that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live, and you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.